I actually went into after 2018 to retire. I was actually going to go in and retire at the end of 2018. They were the two where, some days I really battled, going to training, all those sort of things where you sort of just don't think there's any light at the end of the tunnel coming back from these injuries. I sort of laugh when people say, "Oh, injured" and all that. In the end, Tommy was just far too good for me on the day. He just beat me.
Good point.
His hand comes through, and he pretty much said it to me straight. He goes, "Mate, if you cannot learn to play on these guys, you're not playing in our back line."
All right, champs. Today we have probably the specialist of guests that we've had on the Pies Eyes podcast thus far. He's a 2010 premiership player for the Collingwood Football Club. He's a 2011 All-Australian player, 152 games for the Collingwood Football Club as well. And he's the better of the two brothers that are a part of this family. Ben Reid, how you going, mate?
Thanks for having me, boys. And nice little jab at Sam there, really good.
Send that to him in a snippet. But Alex, it's good to have you on, mate. We've been really looking forward to this, and like I said, we really appreciate you taking out your time out of your busy life to have a chat with two nuffies like us.
Oh, good, boys. It's great to be on. And from the short stuff I've seen of you online, you're doing some good stuff. So well done.
Too kind. Well, we'll get straight into it. So what has life been like post-footy?
It's been a lot slower, that's for sure. I've moved up to country Victoria, a little town called Bright, where I grew up. So moved up there at the end of 2020 when I pulled the pin and played a bit of footy for the Wangaratta Magpies up here. So stayed in the black and white, which was good. And then got into coaching a year later. So that's basically been it, mate. And my wife's got a nutrition business in town, like a natural health sort of thing. So she's at a naturopath and she's got an osteo in there and a Pilates lady in there. So they're doing a lot of stuff in town there. And we've got a couple of Airbnbs up here that are keeping us busy too, mate. So it's been really good. Took me a little while to adjust, but really enjoying it now.
Brilliant.
Yeah, Bright's a very nice place. I actually went up there, stayed up in Airbnb, great wineries as well. And my favorite thing, not from Bright, but the Beechworth apple juice. I don't know if you've had that. That is the bee's knees, champ. If you haven't tried it, next time we'll go off the way, we're going to have to make a special trip.
I'd have to make a way. Was that Reid's Airbnb as well while you're up there?
It could have been.
You would have seen me there, mate, because I live next door to it. So
there you go.
wasn't.
All right. We'll find our way. We'll work our way through all the Airbnbs and we'll find ourselves fucking lofted up in the back of Reid's household. That's how I aim moving forward. But you talk about obviously the transition, being a player initially at Wangaratta, but now you've taken on the coaching role, and we'll talk about a certain someone that you've sort of sprung the spotlight on in previous times and is doing wonderful things for Collingwood right now. But talk us about the transition. Was there ever a desire to, I guess, move into the coaching role, and did you see qualities or tendencies throughout your playing career that maybe suggested that would be the case?
Yeah, it's a funny one. I always enjoyed, I suppose, giving a bit of knowledge to the younger guys coming through. I remember Darcy Moore when he first came in and did a lot of stuff with him, just with some craft stuff at the footy club, and really enjoyed that sort of thing. And then I did my first year out, I did a little bit of stuff with the Murray Bushrangers, just part-time stuff, and that was probably when I dipped my toes in it to start with, just with some younger guys. A couple of them went on to get drafted. Turner from at Melbourne there. So that I really enjoyed that. And then, I suppose the next progression there is whether you want to coach a team or anything like that. And Wang came forward to me and asked me, and I'd never coached my own team, obviously, so it was jumping the deep end a little bit. But I lucky I had a lot of support around me, and some, the coach who was there at the time, Dan Stone, stuck around to help me, which was really pleasing and helped me out a heap, especially when I was playing coaching. I still had that person off field who could still make some calls in the box when needed. But I've really enjoyed it. It's really fulfilling when you see some young guys who come on and, especially when they debut or start to play some really good footy. Guys go further with the footy. Obviously, as you're alluding to with Joe and even some guys who potentially go into some VFL stuff for the next couple of years. That's been the fulfilling part of it for me. The wins are great, but seeing that improvement across the boards, what you get a real kick out of.
Anything you can add to that, James?
Now, I want to know, from playing and then to coaching, do you have a newfound respect for all your, coaches in the past, like things that you didn't really factor in now being a coach yourself?
Yeah, no, 100%. It's funny you say that. I saw Bucks. When was it? I reckon it might have been before the grand final last year. We pretty much sat next to each other at the ground, and I have a little pre-game chat. I actually said to him, mate, I actually got a respect for what the stuff you had to do in terms of dropping guys and picking guys, because it is a really hard job. You never want to hurt anyone or anything like that, but sometimes you just got to make a decision what's best for the team. And when you're a player, you really don't think about that. You just think, well, why aren't I on the side? Or, what the hell are you dropping me $4? Those sort of things. And I've got a real respect for the coaches, the stuff they do and the hard calls they've got to make, because it isn't easy. Because the reality is every single bloke who's at any club wants to play senior footy. And that's just not the reality. So it's something that I took a little while to get good at. Probably still not good at it. You're still probably learning at the same time how to do it better every single week, because it's something you got to deal with every week is telling someone they're out of the side, or and also the other good thing part is telling guys when they come into the side to debut. That's always a really positive thing as well.
Yeah, unreal. Now, just with that, the Joe Richards, I guess what you're alluding to before, is that someone? Did you coach him in any capacity, or was it while you were playing or player coach?
No, so, I coached him for a year. So I played with him for a year, which was 2021, and the season got cut short. But I remember when I rocked up for preseason, I said to our coach back then, which is Dean Stone, and said, mate, who's this blonde kid running around? He's got some talent. He probably needed to put on a little bit of weight and change the way he trained a little bit at times. But he just had the ability to impact the game in all facets. He's really strong on the air for a small bloke. His pressure was elite. His speed's obviously elite, and he can kick on both sides of his body really well. And I just said, he's got some talent. And I found out he was obviously going to go down to the VFL with Josh Fraser, I think the year before. But then with COVID, he decided he's going to move back to Wang and play at the Maggies down there. And 2021, he was playing better footy. He was playing some really good footy in 2021 before it got called short.
Yeah.
And then I just remember his pre-season of 2022 was just phenomenal. Like every running thing we did, he'd win by, 20, 30 meters. He'd never miss a training session. He'd always be there, which is, as you know, country footy boys, they don't all get there an hour before training. A lot of them get there, 10 minutes before and get out there. But he was there, 4:30, 4:45 for a 5:45 start, and doing all the little things before training. And
you wouldn't have had to have any difficult conversations with him, having to drop him while you were coaching, right? Not even close, or
no. The only tough conversation I had to do was obviously he did a little hamstring, and it was honestly trying to hold him back for a week and just saying it's all right to miss a game of footy. He just never missed. He never missed training and didn't miss too many games. And the hamstring, I think, was probably the thing that he found the hardest in that year to deal with, because he'd never had to deal with an injury before. And when he got back, I think when he got back, they really started to talk about him as a kid from the country. And I reckon he had a couple of weeks there where he did find it a little bit tough with all the media speculation and all those sort of things. And I actually caught up with him for a coffee and just told him, mate, how you going? He goes, I'm sick of hearing my name. And I just said, mate, like, you're going to deal with that. But the reality is the only thing that's going to get you drafted is what you do on Saturday. So he just picked off where he left off and started playing some really good footy towards the end of the year. And then his final series was, second to none. I mean, if you see some of the highlights from the grand final, the goals he kicked, probably won the game for us in the end. But yeah, he just, that story is probably in terms of for Wangaratta, probably one of the best stories Wang's had in a long time. And he's such a great person and really well loved around the town. So it was pretty special. I think everyone had a little tear in their eye at Wangaratta when he got picked up that night. That's for sure.
How good. And obviously you mentioned the injuries and obviously you've had plenty of experience dealing with it. So some good wisdom on your behalf. But James, I just want to mention with Joe Richards, when I saw him play that game in the VFL against Brisbane early in the year, he had 3 goals on his left foot, on the right foot. I couldn't put together which foot he was. What was something that maybe you've been, or what's come to your surprise with Joe Richards this year?
I just like, his effort and his ability to, push up high and then lose his man on the way back. And early on, he was providing a lot of link-up play, and it was good. And, you just look at the stats, every time we do the Pie Performance Champs, every time he touches a ball, it pretty much results in a score involvement.
That's what it felt like.
Or a disposed goal assist or a goal for himself.
Yeah.
And alluded to the left foot and right foot as well. Even when he made his debut, I looked at you, I'm like, is he left-footed or right-footed? Like, we actually couldn't pick it.
Yeah.
I had to actually wait until he had a set shot to actually pick up what foot he was, because he's so efficient on both feet.
Where does that come from, Reid?
Not for me, because I only ever kicked on my left, so certainly not. No, I think his brother actually plays with us now, Nick, and Nick's very similar, can kick on both feet as well. So I reckon it's probably come from their old man or someone in their family there, or one of their coaches growing up to come from there. But it's funny when you say get up, every touch he gets results in just about a score, and it was the same here. Like every time he got it. I remember when I played, every time he got it, I'm like, this is going to hit me on the tit every time. But he never. You watch his kicks; they're not bullets. He just weights them beautifully, and he makes it really easy for the guy who's going to mark it. They're almost like pillows coming at you, and they just feel.
Is
they're
it
really
quite
easy to
cold
mark.
in Bright, Reedy, as well?
Cold.
Is it typically cold in Brighty? Excuse me for my ignorance.
Right now, mate, my pool froze over 2 days ago, so yeah, it is pretty cold.
You wouldn't want any bullets coming inside 50 then with that type of weather, right?
Nah. Luckily, we play in Wang. It's a little bit warmer in Wang than it is in Bright. But yeah, he's just, as he said, he's running. We played him as a midfielder, so he only rested forward for us. And whenever he rested in forward, he kicked 2 or 3. So. He just had this unique. He kicked 10 goals when he was 15, I think, in one senior game. So he knew where the sticks were.
Unreal.
Yeah, you're alluding to some midfield minutes up in Wang. Do you think that's a possibility for him in the future to potentially roll into that midfield position at Collingwood?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, Collingwood have got a very system-based team, the way they play. It's almost one mid in, another mid in, and then high half forward out, another half forward in. They don't. So Joe was playing that role for probably 18 months in the VFL and doing it well. And I think probably sometimes that role at VFL is probably harder than at AFL level, because the standard's obviously a little bit different. And the guys kicking it to you, obviously a little bit better at AFL level than they are at VFL level. So, look, to answer, he definitely have the tank to do it. But at the moment, I think he's probably just really focused on nailing down that half forward spot. And he's still doing that. He's still trying to really cement his place in that side. So he knows he's still got a lot of work to do to cement his spot in there.
Yeah, well, mate, if you've got any more of those brewing in Wangaratta, just keep feeding them into the Pies helm, and we'll be grateful for that. But look, mate, we want to obviously shift the focus back to you. Let's go right back to the bare bones of, I guess, your inception within the AFL level. You had 8 games in 3 years coming into the league as a pick 8 in the draft from memory. Was it what did it take for you to have that breakout year in 2010? Was there an epiphany moment? Was there genuinely a moment where you said, "Oh, I've got it all figured out," or was it just, I guess, a compounding sort of effect to get to 2010?
Yeah, probably a number of factors, mate. When I was drafted, I was only 17 years old, obviously, so I was obviously really young. I was 196 centimeters and I was 78 kilos. So there wasn't a lot of me, when I got drafted, and so I had to put on some weight. Maturity wise, whether I was ready or not. I've actually said in the past, like if I had Peter Dean was my coach at Bushies and actually said maybe you should wait a year and not go this year. When you're a young naive kid, all you hear is, "Oh, there's a chance to go in the first round." No, I'm getting drafted now. That's all I want. So I didn't listen to Deanie, but in hindsight, I actually said, look, maybe for my footy, it might have been better on a personal level to wait another 12 months in hindsight. But in the end, it worked out pretty well for me. But it sort of took me those 3 years, to really learn, I suppose, how to play like an AFL player, live like one, all those sort of things. After my second year, I thought, geez, I might be out here. Like I might be, 2 years in and out, because I wasn't doing much, obviously. And then Mick sort of said, "Oh, well, we'll throw you down back for my third season," and played nearly the whole year in the VFL. And I played 3 games of AFL, and you wouldn't believe it, he threw me out forward for those 3 games. So it didn't make much sense back then. But that next preseason, I had a really strong preseason, and then started the year in the AFL side and got dropped, I think, after round 2, I think it was. And then came back into the side and played some okay footy. And then there was a game up at Brisbane where I played on Jonathan Brown and Brendan Favola, and I reckon Brownie kicked 5 or 6 on me. And I was sort of thinking to myself, went back to the hotel and we lost, tail between your legs. Obviously, when you lose and you get a few goals kicked on you. And I jumped in the elevator and Nick Maxwell's hand come through really late. Like you picture the elevator doors closing, you go, "I'm going to bed." His hand comes through and he pretty much, said it to me straight. He goes, "Mate, if you cannot learn to play on these guys, you're not playing in our backline." So it was pretty narrow, pretty pointed the way he'd said it. And then, went to work that week with Matchy Hudson and Nath Brown, obviously a good mate of mine, and then started to play some really good footy. And that was probably the turning point in my career, to be honest.
Yeah, nice. I just want to know, like, with the short turnarounds, like let's say, you've got a 6-day break until your next game. Is there a lot you can develop in about a week's time?
Not really. Nah. You probably work on your craft a lot during the week. A lot of it's recovery, obviously. And then you work on the little things, little crafty things as a back. How can you make it a little bit harder for your forward at times, your positioning, all those you can work on. But I mean, you're not going to get any fitter. You're not going to get any stronger. You just got to try and tweak some things. And sometimes, and you've got it once you get that feedback too. Like I got from Maxi, it probably could have went either way. It probably could have me, soaked it up. Thought, "Oh, what do you know, Maxi, you arsehole?" But it really just made me work harder, to be honest. I mean, I was always one when I got direct feedback. I'd prefer that than have it sugar coated. I think, and that's probably helped with Mick as a coach as well back then. I mean, he was, pretty straight down the line how he wanted you to play, and Maxi was probably very similar as a leader as well.
Yeah, I think that leads perfectly into the next question. So obviously you had a breakout year 2010, really found your footing. Now then next year, All Australian in 2011. And you kind of alluded to before with Joe Richards with injuries and playing through injuries. Obviously the grand final you played with that groin injury wasn't at 100%. Was that difficult to come with, like to deal with?
Yeah, it's a funny one. I actually, going into the grand final, I actually felt pretty good. David Butterfin took me through a number of tests and got through them all fine. And the groin in the first quarter in that I was actually going all right. And then just before half time, I sort of just gave a little bit of a tweak. And then and obviously Tommy had the better of me in the second half, but I sort of laugh when people say, "Oh, injured," and all that. In the end, Tommy was just far too good for me on the day. He just beat me.
Good point.
And that happens. I always say to guys, you're never going to play. Not everyone's going to play a good game all the time, and you're going to get beaten from time to time. And he certainly got. We had some really good tussles over the years, Tommy and I, and obviously that day sticks out because it's a pretty big day. And but at the same time, mate, it was a couple of really good years that I remember as a team. I mean, even 2012, prelim. So those 3 years as a group of players, we played some really good footy. So it was definitely a time to remember.
Yeah. And I was going to ask Benny, on top of all of that, so you see some success, not instantaneously in your career, but 2010 and 2011 were probably the most, prestigious careers, periods of your career, and I like most of those players in that generation. But did you feel like you were going to get back around to it, I guess, a bit quicker than I mean, there was the 2018s and the 2019s, but I think you were predominantly injured for the most part of that period. Did you think you were going to come around to it a bit quicker? Or did you take that for granted? What did that, I guess, how was that mindset around that?
Yeah, well, there was a massive turnaround, wasn't there, in players? So, that premiership side, within probably 3 or 4 years, there wasn't a lot of guys left. But like as I said, I still think 2012, had we got there, we obviously had some tragic circumstances at the end of that year with J-Mac that definitely had an impact on the playing group going into that prelim. And then 13, we probably just spluttered around a little bit in 2013. We still played some good footy, but we probably just never got it fully going. And then, but yeah, I'm not sure, mate. It's a hard one to look back on. I mean, I think in AFL now, teams go up and down a lot, up and down the ladder. And, we had a couple average years there between 14 and 17 I don't think we played finals in any of those years. So it was a pretty average sort of 4 years. But at the same time, it was, you do take for granted the good times, but then you learn a little bit of the bad times. You can take them with you later in life too and use them as something to look back on and go, hey, it's never going to be as good as this. And I sort of say this to some young guys, like, while you're winning at any level, enjoy it, because it's not always going to be there for you. So I look back on it and go, it's a career of highs, a career of lows, and it's something I really, really loved as well.
It's funny because it's hard to comprehend as a youngster, and you would know, obviously, experiencing it firsthand. And then, do you feel like when you are trying to espouse this wisdom on your younger players that you're coaching, you sort of you try, I guess, articulate as best you can, but you sort of know that to a certain extent, maybe they're not going to fully be able to grasp what you're saying until they are, 35, 40, whatever it may be.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think we all know the older you get, you learn a few more things. And all you do is try and impart a little bit of knowledge. And sometimes they can look at you and go, oh, you played AFL, it's easy for you to say that. But at the same time, I think it's just the principle you're trying to tell them that, hey, no matter where you are, whether it's at work or footy or whatever it is, I'm big on always trying to, while you're doing something, why not try and do it the best of your ability in anything you do. Like even, for example, if you're putting in a new garden bed, why don't you do that the best you can? You might not be very good at it, but try and do it as best you can. Whereas, sometimes I think these days especially, they can sort of hope it's going to come easy to them instead of having to do the work to actually get there.
Yeah, brilliant. I just wanted to segue into, like we said, we talk about the injuries, and I mean 2010 we didn't even touch on that, but obviously everyone knows the story about the broken fibula, playing through that, which was unreal within its own sense, and then having some dramas in 2011 throughout the grand final, but in 2014, 2015, we see Ben Reid plays just the 9 games, which was probably, correct me if I'm wrong, was that your first ongoing chronic encounter with the soft tissue injury side of things?
Yeah, that was just, I did a really, really bad calf strain. I actually thought I had a corky. It was in one of the preseason games, and I think we're up in the Gold Coast, to be honest, and I end up playing, and they go, I reckon you'll be right. And I play, I'm buggered here. So I came off halfway through and ended up getting a scan. I pretty much tore the tendon in my calf. So I knew it was going to be at least 12-week injury with that. And that I just had a lot of setbacks with that. I really struggled with the rehab trying to get it right. It was almost as soon as I got up and going, it'd fall down on me again, and I just couldn't quite get it right. So they were the 2 most frustrating years of my career, without a doubt. In those 2 years, because number one, I was in the prime of my career, 25, 26, and really frustrating with the on-field performances we're getting. And you're sitting there going, I just want to get out there and try and help. But they were the 2 where some days I really battled, going to training, all those sort of things, where you sort of just don't think there's any light at the end of the tunnel coming back from these injuries. So those 2 years were far and away the hardest of mine personally.
Yeah. And Reid, how deep does it get? Because people think injuries, they think, all right, here's the rehab plan. You'll be back in 12 weeks. But then when it becomes a bit more chronic, we're starting to talk the mental game. And people might not understand what that means when it comes to the mental battle with injuries, the confidence. You don't know, you're hypersensitive to how your car feels when you go out for your first, I guess, match or massive conditioning load post-injury. How much is there much of an emphasis on that at AFL level? Did you ever come across it, or was it always just a focus on ticking the boxes when it came to the physical capacity side of things?
Yeah, I think it's funny. I got better at the mental side of it the older I got to deal with it. But certainly those 2 years mentally, it started to take its toll on me to the point where I'm like, I'm just sick of this. I don't know if I want to play anymore. But the club were really good at times. They said, go and have a couple of weeks away, relax, take your mind off it, and come back. But it was just, as you said, it's missing the games, but it's also missing all that camaraderie as well with the group. Like, you're not out at training. You're up in the, back then we had the altitude room. So you're in the altitude room by yourself with no one else around you. And you're in there for, an hour and a half doing some conditioning work, and you finish and the boys are still outside, and then you got to go and do weights. They come in and having lunch, and as soon as they finish having lunch, they go do weights, and then you're getting treatment. So some days you literally, you hardly even see the boys when you're in there.
Explains the big biceps then, doesn't it? All that time in the gym.
In the gym, yeah. But I think, as I said, it was just that was the hardest part for me, just not being able to be out at training, because that's the fun part of footy, being out there training, playing on games and weekends. I mean, that's what you play footy for at any level, let alone at AFL level. And then you spend a lot of, even when you're doing your rehab running, you're by yourself on the far wing. I actually had a joke. They should call it the Ben Reid wing, the amount of times I ran up and
down. We'll try to get that going. But I love what you say, that like even at local footy that I play at, like Tuesday, Thursdays, probably one of the best nights of the week, because I can, all my stress of work life, maybe something got done personal, I can just go switch off hour and a half, 2 hours, and I'm just running around with the boys. We're having banter. You're just thinking about the ball, and that's it. And I reckon just doing any kind of physical activity that you put your mind off things, I think is kind of speak highly of. So I love that. Yeah. So 2015, 2016, you managed 15 plus games in those, starting to rebound and, find some feet again, getting some more consistency in your game. And then unfortunately, your 2019, 2020, 2021 seasons, and ultimately having to deal with retirement. How did you deal with, unfortunately that becoming a reality of facing retirement?
Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, 2016 and 17, I probably played as good a footy as I've played in my career on a personal level through those couple of years. And then 18 started the year really well, and then had a pretty bad injury and took a while to try and get back for that one. And pretty much by round 8, my season was just about done for that year. And then, and as you said, 19, I was in and out of the side a lot, and then obviously played the prelim. But I actually went into after 2018 to retire. I was actually going to go in and retire at the end of 2018. Wow. And I walked into the I think it was 18. No, sorry, end of 19. I walked in, and I was thinking I might pull the pin, and Bucks and Brent Sanders at the time were talking about next year, and I'm sort of thinking in my head, should I've come in here to retire today, and they're talking about next season. So I ended up signing for another year, which I'm glad I did, because while it was, it wasn't your greatest last year in the hub, and you couldn't enjoy the fruits of AFL and all those sort of things. It was really good just to spend my last 3 or 4 months with all the guys that I played a lot of footy with and spent a lot of time with up north, all really close together, and that was it. But I sort of, as I said, I sort of knew going into 2020 it was going to be my last year, just with my body, and and in the end, my body told me that you've had enough here. Time to give someone else a crack and get out of there.
Yeah. Was that difficult to accept? or by the time 2020 came and you had that, I guess the final nail in the coffin was like, nah, that's it.
Yeah, it was. It's funny. My last 10 weeks of it before I pulled it, I actually was playing some pretty good footy in the VFL and got back and played against Sydney, and then felt like I was really fit at that time and feeling really good. And I actually started thinking, if I keep going like this, you never know. And then obviously I did the hammy against Melbourne when we played them, and then coming back from that, I just had a little setback at training, and I remember walking back to my room, and I said there, and I said, I reckon I'm going to go pull the pin. I'm going to go retire now, and I've had enough. So I actually got the physios and said, look, if I've done it, which I reckon I have, I'm fairly sure I've done it. I've done enough of them to know. I'm going to pull the pin. And so I went around to Bucks's room, and he said, "This isn't good when you walk in with the doctor, mate. What's going on?" Yeah. And I said, "Mate, I'm going to hang him up. I've had enough. It's just body's telling me." And I enjoyed the next couple of days. I mean, I was in a resort in Queensland, so I think I spent it by the bar for the next 3 days, having a few drinks with people and all that, which was good. So look, I thoroughly enjoyed my career. I had a great time, and it's something that I'll certainly remember forever. So yeah.
And just on the topic of Bucks, and I'm not going to go as far and on a stretch and ask you who you preferred out of your Bucks and your Malthouses, but maybe you can indicate maybe what were some of the qualities that you liked of Mick. Obviously, he's a straight, I guess, edginess you liked. What qualities you liked in Mick, and maybe what were some qualities you liked in Bucks. I'm not gonna force you to tell me who you preferred over one or the other, though.
No, both very different. I got along well with them both. Mick was almost like a man manager. His assistants did a lot of work. Sometimes we wouldn't hear from him in pre-season for 2 or 3 meetings, and then he'd pop up and say some stuff. But he was awesome. A lot of the guys always say someone that he'd treat the guys that he saw something a little bit harder than the others. So it was fantastic. I remember one of my first training sessions, I kept missing these targets at training, and he pulled me off the ground and he said, sit over here, son, and watch this drill. So that was imagine being a 17-year-old kid and getting told that. You feel you feel good. But he was fantastic. And then Bucks was, I always say Bucks towards the end of his coaching was a far better coach than he was in his first 3 or 4 years. And I think that's just natural. I mean, he's been in the hot seat for longer. He's probably learned a lot of things. He becomes certainly a more personal coach the further on it got. And towards the end of my last probably 2 years, I probably had as good a relationship with Bucks as I had. And he started to become a real, sort of caring coach. And not that he didn't care, but he just found that, that extra little bit in terms of that connection piece between player and coach. And I've got to get along with him fine now. When I see him, have a beer and say good day.
Yeah, that's it.
That leads to an interesting one. I want to know, out of the 2 coaches, who gave you the biggest spray?
I was lucky. I didn't get too many, luckily, when I was playing. But Mick would always have this one. He'd point, and then it'd be come out, and you just go, shit. You go, what have I done here? And you just know you're going to cop it. Bucks never really gave me too much of a spray. They both, to be honest, I never really got a bad one off them. I'd heard them give it to other players, that's for sure. But not too many on a personal level, which was either means they weren't watching me. They weren't watching me, or I don't know, something was going on.
And being a coach yourself now, have you had to give a spray?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. Not on a personal level, so to speak, but to the group, I've had to, and it's something that you don't like. I'm not a natural. I don't get too angry or too scream at blokes or anything like that. And but but I sort of had to learn to be a bit harder across the last couple of years when something's not getting across, to sort of made it a bit more pointed, or the team's not going too well, get a bit more pointed. Not to the extent of calling someone a weak bastard or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just more, hey, come on, we got to get going a little bit here. But it's different. You get better at it, that's for sure. Yeah. But you the first time you do it, you're sort of not sure how it's going to come across, because it's probably the first time they've heard you raise your voice, and I don't like doing it, to be honest. I don't think you get a lot out of it. You probably do it once every blue moon, to be honest. Otherwise, I just think you're a dickhead and keep ranting and raving. If the intensity is not there, you get a little bit more upset. But it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, and you talk about intensity, and we talk Collingwood in 2024. We find early in the season maybe the energy was lacking. You can talk premiership hangover. You can talk a myriad of things. The system's not working, and then we bounce back and we put ourselves in a really strong position. Going 4 weeks back. And then we sort of regressed to a certain extent. What are you seeing, mate? Like, what are you seeing? Are there too many spot fires for Collingwood to overcome right now to find ourselves in a top 4 position or an opportunity to go back to back?
Yeah, I think at the moment there's been so many moving parts of the team this year. They haven't had that cohesion every week. Where last year they probably had it for a lot of it. People forget though last year that they lost their last 3 games going into the finals.
Yeah.
So, they can turn it around. I think when they're playing at their absolute best, I still think they're one of the best 3 teams in it when they're playing their best footy. They've probably just got to piece it together for longer periods of time, and they probably look a little bit disconnected in some parts of the ground at times. The defence at times looks a little bit disconnected to what it probably has been, but I don't think they'd be sitting there saying our season's stuff. I think they'd be sitting there going, where if we can get these little things right and turn it around, then I don't reckon there'll be too many teams that would want to play us. And they've obviously got some injuries, but as we've seen, they've had some good players out and probably played some better footy. So it's not so much about the names in the team at the moment.
Yeah, interesting. That is interesting. Like when we were, I guess, finding our feet, we were missing the Degoes, the Meyer checks in bits and pieces, Tom Mitchell still, Scott Pendlebury, and they come back and we think we're going to go an extra level. But I guess, like you said, it just goes to show sometimes if the system isn't doing its thing, then I guess that's the first thing that's going to break and lead to, I guess, a form slump, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think anything with AFL now, like any team any week can beat anyone. So the competition's probably never been closer. So if you are off, 5-10%, you're probably going to get your pants pulled down. So and you can see the ebbs and flows in games. I mean, you've only got to look at the Cup GWS game. I reckon most people would have turned it off at quarter time.
Yeah,
and then and then you see what GWS did for the next 3 quarters. So it really a lot of it from the outside looking in, a lot of it looks like it's sort of between just bring that intensity for the whole 4 quarters, and the team that does that across those 4 quarters generally wins.
Yeah, and we don't want to highlight players because, like I said, we understand it's the system that matters first and foremost. But if you're Ben Reid, coach of the Collingwood Football Club, we haven't even asked you if that's an endeavour you want to go down later in the future. Yes or no?
I'll wait and see. I've got to do a little bit more.
And that's a yes. You heard it here first.
First. But if you say you're in Fly McRae's shoes, and look, like I said, the system is important, but I guess there are times where you may have to attend to some form slumps on an individual level and try different things. With someone like Darcy Moore, who's been, I guess, massive in the spotlight of mainstream media lately, I mean, outside of patting him on his shoulder and just telling him to keep persevering, is there anything, I guess, positioning-wise, or whether starting position defensively, or would you entice a move down forward? How would you approach it without knowing too much about what's going on between the 4 walls? Is he carrying an injury? How would you try and approach that situation, given, I guess, the sample size that you've seen?
Yeah, it's tough. Well, without being there, it's really hard to comment on it. But knowing Darcy and the sort of bloke he is, he'd be doing a lot of work on it. At the moment, I think sometimes it almost looks like when he's going for these spores, he's trying to almost go too hard at times, and he's just misjudging the ball a little bit. But at the same time, I think it could be one quarter and he's back in form. It's not going to take long for him to. He's too good a player. He's got too much talent for it not to turn around. He'd be no doubt doing the work at training, talking to the coaches, working out what's best for him. And I've no doubt he'll bounce back. He's a too good a player for it not to happen. But at the moment, he's obviously in a little bit of a form slump, but one that I think he can get out of pretty easily.
Can you talk? Obviously, having played with Darcy and playing similar positions at certain times throughout your career, tell us about Darcy internally. Like, people say he looks uninspiring on the field. He doesn't have that leadership traits, and it doesn't hurt him when he's down. Is that quite the contrary from when you look at him internally, like what you see on the training ground? Like, does it means a lot more to him than what people might be making it out to be?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I can only speak for when I was with him. I mean, it's been 4 years since I played with him now, so it's been a little while. But what I remember of Darcy, he's just so willing to learn and get better every day. Whenever you're trying to give him feedback, he'd be so invested in that. And I've no doubt he's still the same. As I said, he's just in a little bit of a form slump. Being captain of the footy club, it's probably been looked at a little bit more than what it would otherwise. And it doesn't help when the team's not playing great footy either. So, look, I think for anyone out there that thinks he doesn't care about his footy or wouldn't be working on his footy, then they obviously haven't been inside the footy club too often. He's loves the Collingwood Footy Club. Obviously grew up around it, and I've got no doubt he'd be doing everything he can to not only get himself in form. He'd be hurting more about the losses more so than his own form. Like he'd be more about, all right, how can we win as a team more so than what have I got to do to get. He'll be thinking about himself as well, but he'd be more interested in the team winning than him playing really good footy.
Yeah. All right, casting your mind back away from Darcy Moore conversation, who is the most interesting teammate you've had? Like looking at externally, maybe at the 2024 side, I'd think like maybe an Oleg Markov, like he's got that kind of mystique and aura about him. I want to know from your playing days, who was your most interesting teammate? Kind of like an unusual operator.
Yeah.
I had a few of them. Heath Shaw's definitely up there. He just wouldn't shut up. Like between you never want to get the court in the same room with him and Dale Thomas.
Yeah.
Because all they do is take the piss out of you the whole time. So they're but in terms of different operators, I'm just trying to think. Brad Maynard's a funny one, I reckon. Like Bruzzy's, everyone sees what he does in the field and how hard he is, but off the field, he cuddles you more than anyone. Like you literally walk past him, he gives you a big cuddle, and he's just a big kid, really. But Heat is definitely the most different bloke I've played with. Like he's just not
just saying that nicely. It's possible.
Well, he's just non-stop. I mean, it's almost, I don't know how he does it. He's continually on the go. It's almost like he never has an off switch. He played a game up here for Cora the other week actually, and he's sending me messages at 12 o'clock at night having a crack at me. So that's how.
Unreal. No, we missed that. We missed that Rat Pack, mate. The so-called Rat Pack. But So, Reid, we've appreciated your time. We've got 5 minutes left with you, and we figured we put together a bit of Reedy trivia. We want to know how well you know some of the highlights / lowlights of the career that was. So I'll let Caleb start with the first question. This will be interesting.
Who do you have a losing record against?
As a team?
As a team. I'll give you
in games you've played.
In games you've played.
And
there's two teams there, Reedy. Two teams
Sydney?
that have a losing record.
Sydney won? No. Geelong?
No.
No. Hawthorn?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's 2 wins and 8 losses for against the Hawks, and then there's one more team. I don't know if you're going to get this one, so we'll give you a couple more guesses.
Who I play against? Let me think.
Interstate team.
Interstate. Yep.
Interstate. Adelaide.
Yeah. Bang on.
Why does that come to mind?
I just remember we didn't beat them too often when we played them. Yeah. They're always really hard to play against. Yeah.
I remember were you a part of the game? I'm not sure if you were in it, but where I think it was Jack Anthony who had that goal late in the elimination final or something. Were you part of that?
No, I didn't play in that. That was 09. Oh, it was 08, wasn't it? 08 or 09?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Actually, another question regarding grounds. You see it in Gold Coast at the moment. Like they've made that a fortress. They win every game up there. They travel away. They can't win. Was there any grounds that you played on that just felt different, or a team played really well?
SCG was really different.
Mm.
Yeah, SCG was really different purely because how small it was. And a lot of the time, I mean, I played as a back and a forward there, but if you're at centre half back or centre half forward, the ball can go over your head a fair bit. So that was definitely different. And then Subiaco as well, when we played at Subi, just how long the ground was it took some while to adjust. I remember days before the game kicking, the depth perception was always different as well.
Yeah. Did you ever ask Sammy whether he preferred playing at SCG, or did he lick his lips when he was coming to the MCG?
We never kicked the goal in the MCG, so that's probably why he didn't like going there.
There you go.
Well, to be honest, the one time he tore Collingwood apart is I was playing up forward and he was playing on Howie, and I think he kicked 6 on him.
Did you ever want to make the change at any given point throughout the game, or you left it to the coaches?
Well, yeah, it's up to the coach. But I remember Alir sort of said, "Mate, you better go down there and play on your brother here because he's tearing us apart."
Yeah. Lee's a funny bloke. He's always looking like he's having a laugh on the field. But we'll keep moving with the trivia. We've got 4 more questions, okay? So we'll say maybe he didn't pass the first question because it took a couple of attempts to get there. But outside of GWS and Gold Coast, Reid, who have you played the least amount of games against in the AFL?
Essendon? Nah. It's got to be interstate side, doesn't it?
Again. Yeah, I think interstate again.
Interstate. I would say West Coast.
Last chance, mate. Last chance.
Fremantle.
You're in Brisbane.
What?
Brisbane with 5
Brisbane.
games.
Is that all there, right? Yeah. Well, probably because Brownie kicked 6 on me. They don't want to play him against Brisbane again.
That's fair. That's fair. I think the likes of maybe if we can ever get a side bottom on for trivia, I reckon he's someone who would fare quite well. For Solo springs out to me as someone who loves himself a lot, so maybe he knows a bit about his career. Look, I reckon you get this one. I reckon and we'll leave that one to Caleb as well.
Yeah, which team have you beaten the most? I love this answer as well.
It's Carlton.
I love it. That's why I love it. So you bet them 10-6.
Yeah, I always played right against Carlton. So I remember, I always do remember that one. Yeah.
What was it? What was it about it? Just the rivalry, the occasion.
My dad actually played for Carlton, so whether that had something to do with it.
Were you father-son eligible, Reid?
Nah, he played 88 with the Doggies and then 30 odd with Carlton. So no, it wasn't. But I've got a few mates who are Carlton supporters, so maybe that was why too.
Okay, there you go. All right, last 2. So I reckon you're 1 and 2 here. So we'll try square the ledger on this one. What is your career high in contested marks for a single given game?
Come
on, mate. Don't act like surely you know. Thereabouts.
8?
Nah.
6?
Yeah, 6. 6 against Port Adelaide. I stupidly forgot to add the year that it was. Do you remember maybe when those 6 contested marks were against Port?
I reckon it might have been 2000 and I played forward, I reckon, from memory.
Yeah.
I reckon it was over there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're 2 and 2. Or we'll call it 2 and 2 going into the last one.
You should remember this one. This is the positive one. How many times have you kicked 4+ goals in a game? And bonus points if you get the teams. Bonus points.
I'll kick 5 against North. I think that was my career high. Okay. Carlton, I've done it. Port.
Yep.
Have I done it against Essendon?
No. So sorry, you've got Carlton.
Yeah. I'll say 6 times, 5, 6.
Yeah, we'll give it to you. Yeah, 5 times. So you got North, Carlton, West Coast,
Carlton twice,
Carlton twice,
and then Port Adelaide. So the totals are there. So
Yeah.
not bad, mate. You bounced back well.
3
bonus points as well. So maybe this is a segment that we start doing if we get past players or current players on. So great news. You are currently in the lead. How do you feel?
Yeah, good that. Let's stop it now. You boys stop your podcast and finish, and we're done.
Unreal. Hey, mate, just last thing before I let you go. You played 152 games for the Pies. Does that mean your juniors eligible for father-son moving forward as well? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, well, it's 100 games. So he's in the Peter Dacos Academy. He's only 2. He loves his footy already, so that's good. But yeah, well, if he gets his mother's genes, he'll be no good.
Yeah. Hopefully, he hasn't got your calves.
No, exactly. His calves are a bit meatier than mine. So at the moment, anyway.
Yeah, all good. Hey, Reid, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. We were a little bit nervous coming into it, but we softened up a little bit, and we appreciate it and better for it, mate. We really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you having me, boys. I might see you at the game on Friday night.
We'll see you there. We'll see you in the long room, hopefully, mate.
Well, we got our premiership reunion on Friday night.
Oh, there you go. I did not know that. So I've fucking learned. Yeah. I've learned a few things tonight. All right. Well, so is Heater going to be floating around?
I think there's a fair few going. I think we're doing the guard of honour for the boys running out.
Okay, brilliant. Nice. So guys, make sure, get around to the game if you've got your tickets and be there for the 2010 Premiership reunion. Unreal.
Yeah, I think I'm allowed to say that, but anyway, get it out there.
All good. All right, Reid, we'll leave you with it, mate. Thanks so much for your time.
Good on you guys. Thanks very much.